Hello everyone, my name is Anthony Cummins and welcome to this. Now the video I want to do today is about Koryu. Do we trust Koryu? Do we like Koryu? Do we think Koryu is outdated? You know, what are your ideas? So before I start, I want to let you know that the comments below are for you to put your opinion on Koryu. Now, let me start this way. I love Koryu. I absolutely, deeply love Koryu. I think the fact that something has been passed down by word of mouth, by, you know, written skills, by oral tradition, by skills with a sword or jiu-jitsu or information that's come from master to master through generation is an amazing thing. It's truly amazing, and I'm so glad that Japan still has something like that. And I know you realise there's a but coming here, and that's the simple fact that that doesn't mean it's infallible. It doesn't mean it's perfect. Koryu is not that which is absolutely firm. Now let's first start with Koryu. The word Koryu means old school. Now that of course refers to anything from the samurai period. So when we say old school, Koryu, we are talking as modern people about an ancient school. So the first thing you've got to realise is that with Koryu is that actually the earliest masters are to be probably more believed or held in high esteem over the modern masters. Modern masters have 300 or 400 years of passed down information between them and us. So it becomes a little bit of a Chinese whispers. So loving Koryu, like I do, I love it, doesn't mean you should believe everything inside of Koryu. So if you're unaware, in history, what you do is you try to find documentation or archaeology that will give you information about the past. Now, archaeology generally gives you that really solid base information. History gives you information where you can analyse it and think, right, okay, that's great information, but we need to put a filter on that. The idea is that what was the person's political stance who wrote it? If we have a document, what's their reason for writing it? Now, the problem comes because of here we have the Lost Samurai School. Now, the Lost Samurai School is a story about Musashi Ryu. It's a story about Hagiwara Juzo, and it's a great story in the sense that it was a man who studied, oh, I'm sorry, that's my phone, studied revenge. But recently I just got an email from a guy, and I wanted to make a video about this because he's totally right. And what it is the Musashi Ryu lineage chart. If you look on page 13, it says that there are 15 Grand Masters of Musashi Ryu. And number 14 is Nishimura Seitaro. And this is the man who taught Uematsu Sensei. However, this is not correct. It's not correct. By that, what I mean is, the sensei, Uematsu Sensei, said he was taught by a gentleman called Nishimura Seitaro. Now, that's great. He's learnt from a guy of that name. He's learnt the skills. But, in actual fact, we know there's a generation missing. There's a problem. Because Nishimura Seitaro died in 1919. And this gentleman was born in 1948. Now, he had never questioned the lineage of his Koryu. He just assumed that's what it was. The reason there's this discrepancy is because probably there's a father-son of the same name. And he never questioned that. He never asked that about the family. And now, of course, that his master is dead. So what we have is an unknown amount of generations with the same name that have missed out about 50 years of the lineage. Now, what does this mean? What it means is, should we trust Koryu? When we go and speak to a Grandmaster from Japan and we say there, should we believe everything they say? The answer is no. For example, when I went to meet Katori Shinto Ryu's Grandmaster, or sorry, not Grandmaster, their Shihan Otaki Sensei, he said, you know, it was derived from a god, and their master has a tradition where he can throw shuriken from a seated position. The idea of where he could sit really lightly on grass blades. If you're a little bit lost, basically there are lots of strange supernatural traditions within Katori Shinto Ryu, but they're passed down. Does that mean we should believe them? Of course not. We don't believe that he meditated and threw a shuriken and beat another man, or meditated and lay upon a piece of grass really lightly. I know this sounds confusing, but there's stories behind this. But my point is that the stories are semi-supernatural, and we shouldn't really believe them. The same as Uematsu Sensei says he studied from Nishimura Seitaro. But actually, if you follow that story, Nishimura Seitaro actually has his own monument, his death tablet, if you like, or a monument to his death in Japan, in the town where Uematsu Sensei lived, and it has the date on it. So why has Uematsu Sensei not realised that there's a date here, and he can investigate this and realise that that's not his teacher, or his teacher there's multiple generations? The reason is simple, is that they are not historians. Koryu masters are not historians, they're simply passing on what they have learned. And this would make you think that Uematsu Sensei was maybe dubious, but it was quite obvious that something has been passed on, but much of the traditions have been lost. Now, my fault, totally my fault, but we do explain the reason for the problems with lineage on page 320 of this book, but it's in Japanese, so it's more for the Japanese audience. But I'm just making this video to correct for the Western audience that in Mubyoshu Ryu there was a problem. They didn't know their lineage. Uematsu Sensei simply studied from that family, the Nishimori family, and he was like, I studied from them. But there's an argument that's happened, and we went to interview the family, and they said, oh, we're ill, you know, there's an illness in the family. Which basically, if you understand Japanese society, means please don't bother, go away. So, you know, we retracted. But it means we've had to re-establish the lineage, and Uematsu Sensei himself didn't know the lineage. And the reason what makes Mubyoshu quite a realistic school is the fact that Uematsu Sensei had, you know, a lot of gaps in his story. He didn't know what was going on, and normally somebody who's created a story has filled every gap in. He was genuinely lost on some of the information, you know, which made me think, okay, yeah, he's just lost a lot of the things along the way. But my point here is, guys, is that we shouldn't trust Koryu explicitly. I prefer to go to the original documents. So in here, and in Natori Ryu, in other schools, we found documents that were from the 1600s, the 1700s, and if we're lucky, we find 1500 documents. And it is much, much better to go to those documents, because that is the magic of writing. The magic of writing is the fact that somebody can think an idea, put it onto the page, and we can read it here and now. We have to put it through our filter to understand the archaic language, but we can get an idea of what they mean. So for me, Koryu is very important, but it's not the be-all and end-all. The reason we have invented history, archaeology, is to put a filter on those documents so we can look at them and say, right, that is amazing information, but it's not, maybe there's a problem with it, we have to check that. Which even more so at a lower tradition is oral tradition passed on for hundreds of years with a man today. That can be great if we've had a man that's been passed on oral tradition all the way today. That is an amazing thing that's happened in the world. But it doesn't mean everything they say is true. It means we have to put it through the filter to check what's going on. So the reason I've made this video is just to make you aware that when you're dealing with Koryu, it can mean that you have to put your filter on and check if this is real. For example, there wasn't a dragon that came down from the star Polaris and gave this information to Hagiwara Juzo, who passed it down to Uematsu Sensei. The realistic idea is that Hagiwara Juzo created something in his mind, he came up with a system, and it's passed down to Uematsu Sensei, but things have become lost, there's been problems, there's things we have to deal with. So while on one hand it is great, on the other hand there are issues we need to deal with. So I want you guys just to be aware after watching this video that Koryu is great, but we need to be careful. Don't believe, like they say about television, Don't believe everything you hear on television or see on television. Same as this, don't believe everything in Koryu. There are some great pieces of information, but we have to put a filter on it and check it. If you're interested in this is the Lost Samurai School. It's the tale of Hagiwara Juzo and his school, with lots of images, lots of information and traditions that we can carry on. My name is Anthony Cummins. Subscribe if you enjoyed this, and I'll be back with more videos as soon as possible.